Thank you for coming. From the realist playbook, China may secretly want to see a surviving but seriously weakened Putin so as to further this asymmetrical relationship developing between Beijing and Moscow and delay, if not deny, the containment of China in the ongoing geopolitical struggle. However, for China, this tightrope is hard to walk and may ultimately converge on two scenarios, either China doubling down on backing Putin by arming his army, or hopefully pushing some real peace efforts by leveraging its senior status in the partnership, although it also means giving Putin some sort of an off-ramp. So my question is, if Biden's administration prefers China to choose the latter, which is peace through leverage rather than doubling down, to what extent is it a good idea to signal policy change on China or some goodwill to de-escalate the geopolitical struggle?
Want to go ahead now?
No, I don't. That's a hard, big question. First, let me talk about Xi and Putin, and then, but you asked a much larger question about U.S.-China relations. I just published a piece actually about 4 hours ago on the summit, so look it up on Substack if you want the details. I'm impressed by what Xi Jinping did not give Putin, right? You can look at it half empty, half full. He got the photo op right after he was declared, by the International Criminal Court indicted for crimes against humanity and kidnapping. He got Xi Jinping to show up, the second most powerful person in the world. And he got the photo up. By the way, it was an informal meeting, right? It wasn't a state visit, but it felt pretty formal, right? The band was playing and the soldiers were there, and there was 2 hours and 25 people on a side, because that's the image Putin wanted. But beyond that, what did he get? Did he get military assistance? If he did, it was secretly done. It wasn't announced. Did he get a big economic assistance package from Xi Jinping? No. He didn't even get, agreement about building the second pipeline. They even delayed that. And oh, by the way, his buddy, his friend, who's met for 40 times, Xi Jinping, he said, yeah, we're going to help you. We're going to buy your energy at a 30% discount from the market prices. That doesn't feel too friendly to me when you're fighting a war and you need that revenue, right? So I think Xi Jinping's trying to have his cake and eat it too, and I'm impressed by what he didn't give Putin, not what he gave him. But you asked a different question. Should we try to leverage Xi Jinping to put pressure on Putin? I don't think that's viable. I just don't. If I believed it were true, that Biden could call Xi Jinping and he could say, I'll do this for you, lift the tariffs, if you get Putin to stop his war. That would be a trade I would consider. I just don't think it's on the cards. It's not on the cards. Because I don't think Xi Jinping has that kind of leverage over Vladimir Putin right now. If I thought he did, if I thought he could call up Putin and say, hey, you know those maps you've been printing? You need to gather them all up and start printing that Ukraine is an independent country. If he had that kind of power over Putin, that might be a deal I would take. I just don't think he has that power. With respect to your bigger question, however, I think we do not need to think about every move that the Chinese make as adverse to our economic interests or our security interests. I think we've got to have a much more sophisticated, realist strategy. I'm a realist. I want to reclaim that word for the way I think about the world. Some people at this university disagree with me on that, Professor Mersheimer. But I believe that not everything they do in the world is adverse to our interests. This deal that they just brokered with between the Saudis and the Iranians, if that helps to keep peace in Yemen, I'm all for that. The peace plan that he put out, if he could get Putin to go along with point one, we should give Xi Jinping the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Focus on point one. Everybody should respect their territorial integrity. I'm not optimistic about that. I want to be clear about that. But I think just thinking that we have to stop China everywhere is what we did early in the Cold War. And I think that was a bad strategy. I think we made mistakes. And we should learn those mistakes, from those mistakes. That's the book I'm writing, and not repeat them. By the way, we should also learn the good things we did during the Cold War. We did a lot of good things during the Cold War. We're not doing those things today. Our public diplomacy right now, I think, is really antiquated. It feels like, 50 years out of date. We have got to lean in. It's great we got the 150 votes, right? Yeah. But those 40 neutral votes, we've got to be going after those votes. So there are lots of good things we can learn about what we did right during the Cold War. But it's both things, not just one or the other.
Well, I think Mike makes every cogent, important point here to answer your question. I would just add, we should play our own game. She does. The Chinese always have. And our game, our strategy, our way, because we have the capability. And we have the alliances and the allies. One example, from the perspective of a former Secretary of Defense, we are the most powerful nation on earth. Nobody's even close to us. We have the Russians and the Chinese with a lot of nuclear warheads, but that's a separate kind of an issue. You're not pulling the nuclear warhead out to use every other week or every month. When you look at projection of power around the world, we have that because we have alliances. We have allies that allow us bases, allow us to project power. Now, it's in their interest too, but it's certainly in our interest. And so we have big bases, submarine bases, Navy bases, air bases in the Indo-Pacific. We've got them all over the world. Nobody can compete with that. Now, that in itself is not the only calculation, but don't play China's game and don't try to stop China on some of this stuff. I think we've made some mistakes. All administrations, Republicans and Democrats, by the way, on this. You try to stop them. You're not going to stop China on growing. They steal our secrets. We know what they do, and they're dishonest. They lie about these things. Well, you're not going to stop them. Let's be smarter. Let's manage all this using our strengths, our alliances, our allies. Use sanctions where they make sense. I'm not a big sanctions guy because I think they always blow up in your face too. And I think that's one of the mistakes the Biden administration has made. They haven't undone the Trump sanctions on some of these things. But that's for a different discussion probably. But bottom line is, let's play our game. We're the most powerful nation on earth. We have freedom on our side. We've got a lot going for us. And what Mike said, let's not play somebody else's game their way. That'd be my answer to it.
That's really smart.